there, everybody. Alright, I know what you're thinking. Why am I talking like this at all? Well, you see, I've been learning a lot from my acting classes, and I feel like I need to change my voice up a little bit. My acting classes taught me about how to feel free with the range, try to assume my voice a little more. I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm not great at voices. I can do a good job myself, but impressions, not as much. When it comes to doing voices, this is really the only one I'm good at. Kind of like, I don't know, Bullwinkle or something? I don't know. It's not a good one, but when it comes to doing impressions or voice ranges, this is the best I'm good at. Anyway, I brought it up because today we're going to be talking about actors. I talked a lot about actors, but now I'm going to go ahead and talk about my favorite one, who is still my favorite after all these years, Tom Hanks. Yes, I love Tom Hanks. I always have. He is one of the best actors of all time and my personal favorite. I did a list about Tom Hanks before, back in 2019. But that was a while ago. I've seen more movies of his. I've grown more wary to his performances, so I had to remake it at some point. Today I'm going to be doing a top 10 list of my favorite Tom Hanks performances again. This list will be looking at Tom Hanks characters, based on how well he played them and how much I like the characters in general. It's not based off of how I like the movies, it's just how the characters are in general, performance wise and character wise. And also keep in mind, don't worry, I won't be doing this voice the whole time. I won't be able to. It's a very hard voice for me to do. So as you can see, I'm probably not the best actor. I really want to become an actor, but if I can't do this voice a lot, then it's going to be a problem. But don't worry, you won't be hearing it in the list just here and now. So, let's get started.
Let's start off with probably the only real life character he plays that I'm fully familiar with, Walt Disney. Yep, that's right, Tom Hanks as Walt Disney. How can you imagine? Well, I mean, can he really do it? I mean, you know who Walt Disney is. He's the man who revolutionized animation. He brought the Disney company to life. He had a lot of controversies with his opinions on the Holocaust, but that's not really relevant at all. No, that's not what this movie's about. It's not really a biopic showing us the origins behind Walt Disney or whatever. No, no. While that does seem like an interesting concept, this film actually tells the story of the production behind the movie Mary Poppins. We all know and love Mary Poppins. It's a classic. It was a revolution for Disney too, but it was also a controversial in the world of filmmaking because this movie tells us that apparently the author of the original book was not at all amused with Disney wanting to put their magical imagineering into making the film. You know, they kind of had different ideas, and that's sort of what this film tackles. So, from that standpoint, you may think, how does that work as a concept? Well, there are a lot of ways it works. We do get to see sort of a nice um the plot play out nicely to where it actually comes off as really interesting. But I think what really helps it shine is Tom Hanks' performance as Walt Disney. I wouldn't imagine it. You don't think that he could do it, but I think what really works is that he puts charm into it. I don't know entirely for a fact how Walt Disney acted, but from this appears, it appears that it's been pretty well noted that he was a genuine nice man. His views may have been different, but when it came to, just hanging out with him or whatever, he was a very wholesome, genuine person. Or at least that's what this movie portrayed. No, I'm pretty sure that's how it is, yeah. This movie shows him off as being a very nice, serious man who is very easy to get along with. He's just so likable in this film. He really does give Walt Disney a nice, likable attitude that I'm sure he had. I mean, he really did come off as the likable type. Maybe not with the same opinions on things, but when it came to talking to him or negotiating, hanging out, he really made life work. And I think it's what helped make Mary Poppins such a great film, seeing how it was able to adapt from the book really well, but also keep all that nice Disney magic involved to it. That's kind of what this movie progresses to. So yeah, I didn't think he could do Walt Disney, but Tom Hanks's nice, wholesome attitude really does make it shine here. And now we're on to some characters I never knew about until I saw the movies they were for. This is Jim Lovell, part of a mission called Apollo 13. That's the movie title. This movie focuses on the story of as a mission in the space, a Apollo mission. But apparently, in this mission, one of the oxygen tanks ends up breaking, exploding, and they end up losing oxygen. Have to rush back to Earth quickly before they lose oxygen and die. So yeah, this was basically a failed mission that resulted in them in their timely death. But of course, the focus of the film is if they'll make it back on Earth in time before they run out. Will they survive the incident? Will they make it back? It's a pretty crazy film to follow. It definitely is a serious story, seeing how it is something that existed. You think that it's not as revolutionary like Neil Armstrong landing on the moon or when the Challenger thing happened, or even just recently, that whole Artemis crap. But here, it's cool to know that such a small mission I was never aware of could be brought to life in this movie, showing how serious it was. And of course, Tom Hanks's performance really does help work there. I think what's great is that he really does give the character the real look real. He doesn't sound like he's acting, he's being an actor for a person. No, he actually feels like the real person. We know he isn't, but him, along with the other two, Kevin Bacon and Bill Paxton, they all just really do a great job at kind of disguising themselves as the real people. So, like, you really do feel the real. I know that's how movies are meant to be made, but Tom Hanks really does a great job at showing off how great that can work. And I think his overall attitude and, dedication to this mission, how he, of course, is all for the mission, but at the same time knows that he's got to act fast before he dies. He really gives that light to the film. You definitely do feel what he has to say. He just disguises himself as the person. So, like, for all we know, maybe he really was the real Jim Lavelle. Who knows? Catch Me If You Can. This film's focus is actually on Leonardo DiCaprio. He's the main character. And he is a great actor. This definitely was a great performance of his. But let's shift the focus to the other guy, Tom Hanks, who plays the detective, Carl Hanratty. He is the detective who has to stop DiCaprio in this film. This film is a partially true story, or more so a book as well. I think that book is where the movie tries to adapt more. Anyway, it's a story of a kid who wants to impress his father and try to get somewhere, and his mission involves literally disguising himself as all sorts of men. He becomes a teacher, a pilot, a doctor, all of course illegally. He doesn't actually get a degree in anything. He just uses as much as he knowledge as he has to try and rush his way into becoming these things to kind of give himself a nice future or whatever. But this, of course, is where the detective Tom Hanks comes in to try and stop him, crack him down, try to stop him from doing all this. I know you could say that this wouldn't count since it's not the main character, and usually those are the characters Tom Hanks is great at. But he does really work here because he's not necessarily a villain in the film. Like, he's not someone who you have to hate against because you get it. It makes sense. He's disguised himself in jobs. He's kind of doing illegal stuff all over the place. But at the same time, he really does come off as a menace here. I mean, I like the character Leonardo DiCaprio plays. He's a criminal, but he's also quite pretty likable. As for Hanks, he's the detective who is all for catching this guy. He's also a very nice and likable man because he of course is ready for his mission, but at the same time we see how serious he is about this and how he isn't doing this because he wants to see him fail. This is not a case of just revenge. But this movie does a great job at showing him off as the guy who just wants to get the job done. He's not doing this because he has serious beef with Leo. He just, he knows he's on the run. He does not want to have a missing person on his case. He wants to actually succeed with his job or whatever. You could argue that their dynamic does sort of fall under the category of them being all, I hate you too, but it doesn't do too much with that. It actually plays it more of how far can one kid go and how much can one man do. And I think thanks to the two performances, it really does shine here. So Leo's a great sport in this movie, but Tom Hanks is also great. Ah, yes, Road to Perdition. Here he plays an actual dangerous man named Michael Sullivan. But what follows in this movie is quite much more than I expected. I do love movies where we follow the lead of a bad person. I mean, I don't know, it's just fun to see us try to take the lead of a man who isn't necessarily someone we're supposed to root for. But here it actually kind of goes in both ways. He is a mob enforcer, and in this movie, he has a son, and he needs to go on this big road trip with his son. But of course, he is still very he's a very dangerous man. He's a mob enforcer, and he when with his son, he starts to become more aware of his danger, what he's doing, and is thinking, "Wow, this is really how I'm acting as a father." It just kind of adds light to the idea. Shows that being a mob enforcer is especially a bad thing when you have a son you want to see a good future in. So it's like you don't want to be that guy who has a son, but then you're out going out killing people and on the run. So it's basically just a road trip film, but instead of it being a road trip comedy, it's an emotional adventure where they become more acquainted, and Hank's character starts to slowly take in account of what he's doing and how he should handle being with his son here, because he has a son. He doesn't want to do these dangerous things with him on his side, but he's got to figure the choices he should make, whether he wants revenge or redemption. That's kind of what the story goes for. What kind of road to perdition is it? I don't know. This movie was awesome. It was a really great film. I do love the dynamic that Hanks has with his. It really does feel like it's his genuine son. We know it's not, but he really does give a good attitude to it. And I just think that their ent- entire chemistry in the film is well done with Hanks's deliveries and emotions. But the character himself is also really fun to follow because, yeah, he's someone who you first are supposed to hate on, but then you slowly see what he is introduced to and what he learns about himself, and it's like, really, how can you hate him anymore? And of course, now we have a man who has every right to be loved. Captain Miller from Saving Private Ryan of course, was notably known as the greatest war movie of all time by most people. Do I think that? In a way, yes. It is a pretty awesome film. It's a really great film, yes. But let's just go ahead and talk about the character. He is one seriously kind soldier. And I know a lot of war movies like to portray that, but here he really does take in a good account. He is just supposed to be like the kindest soldier you could ever imagine in a battle. I mean, you know how soldiers are. They are dedicated to surviving and, taking down as many ships or planes as possible. But in this movie, we instead follow the focus of a captain who is mostly just trying to keep the men around him safe. He's kind of trying to keep as many of his people as possible. This isn't about a man trying to survive for himself. It's a man trying to survive for his entire army, or as well as the friends he makes. It's like him knowing that the people he's around need to survive as much as he does. So this movie kind of portrays how kind the soldier can be. And who better to be that than Tom Hanks? He's a genuine soul. He's the kind of person who really would portray this kind of soldier, one who thinks for more people than just his own life. It's a really beautiful character and a otherwise really beautiful film. I didn't think it'd be beautiful because it's a war movie. I expected nothing but guns firing, people getting killed, and all that. And that does happen a lot of times. But the main story is much more beautiful than that. That's probably why everyone calls it the best war movie. I definitely can agree. It really does hit you in the feels, despite the fact you're probably not 100% familiar with the story. Because this isn't supposed to be a World War II kind of deal, more or less. It's just one of those simple wars. It's not supposed to connect too much with something everyone's familiar with. It's just trying to give us these likable characters who all interact really well with each other. And with Tom Hanks, his character being so kind and considering to the men he has to protect, it's just a very well balanced and fun to watch character progress. All right, now we have Castaway. Here we have a man named Chuck Noland. In this picture, you see someone who looks insane. He looks like a crazy, homeless, methed out lunatic. But he is not that in this movie. This movie shows us how much being stuck on an island can change you. We follow a man who works for FedEx. The plane ends up crashing randomly. They crash in the ocean somewhere. He's the only one who survives on the ship, on the plane. And he is, of course, stuck on an island. He doesn't find any people on that island somehow. Guess it really is just that unpopulated or whatever. But anyway, he has to find ways to survive. And that's exactly what this movie does. It shows us the progression of him um, doing his best to survive on this island. For apparently, this movie gives us the idea that he's been stuck on this island for 4 years. It's pretty crazy. 4 years. Wow. Wow. I mean, yeah, he's stuck on the island for that long. 4 years, and he has to make his own food, get his own water, build his own fire, and even try to work on his own ship too. But we see that it's not easy when you're so limited with the supplies you have. You have to use nature around you. On top of that, the only thing he has working with him is a FedEx box with a volleyball. As we all know, that's his friend in this story. I saw a bunch of memes surrounding the whole, Wilson, and when I knew that that was happening in this movie, I was just thinking, okay, this movie's gonna be fun to watch. I can't wait to mock it to hell. But then we see how serious it is, how he really hasn't been able to talk to anybody for that long. So when we get to the point where he um is saying that and is stuck on the float, there's actually some real emotion in it. I didn't think I'd get emotion about a man crying over a ball, but it's a story about a man who has not been able to make any other friends for so long. So like, yeah, I can't confirm it since I've never been in a situation yet. But yeah, we see just a wonderful depiction of something like this. It's something that I think really would happen to people. Of the amount of beard hair and just hair in general we see Tom Hanks get for this movie, it's like, man, he disguises himself in every role, and I think this is probably one of the best examples of that. Now let's go ahead and talk about one of his earliest examples of great acting. Back in the 80s, before he became a well established dramatic actor who would win a bunch of Oscars or whatever, the 80s were all about him in comedies. He made a lot of appearances in comedy roles, whether it was on TV or in movies. In the 80s, he just starred in as many silly comedies as possible, and I've seen a bunch of them. There were films like Splash, The Money Pit, Bachelor Party, Dragnets, Man Red Shoe. I don't know, just a bunch of weird random comedies that he starred in, and it's like, yeah, he's trying to compare himself to stars like Robin Williams or Billy Crystal, and nowadays we compare him to stars like Leo DiCaprio or Robert De Niro. But this was the film that really did establish him as that kind of actor. Big. Yes, Big. The story of a boy named Josh who one day falls in love with a chick who's way too old to be with him. And he realizes he thinks that he deserves to be big. So when he gets the chance to make a wish, he just doesn't take any thought or process ever. He's just immediately like, I want to be big. And then apparently the next day he becomes a big guy, aka Tom Hanks. And what we have here is probably his best ability to shine as a child. It's one of those adult doing child things, but we know he actually is a child stuck in a grown man's body. He has to work. He knows that he's not able to tell anybody that he's really a boy because no one else believes in this fairy tale logic the movie gives us. So He has to get a job. He has to find a home, and the entire movie shows him doing all this with his child body. It makes for a lot of funny moments, of course, like scenes where he's, of course, just a child and adults trying to talk with him and stuff. So it's fun. It is a lot of fun comedy here and there, but it's also amazing acting too, because there are a lot of dramatic scenes. We get one scene where he has to spend the night in a hotel because he can't stay with his mom because his mom thinks he's a pedophile, and we actually do see him get really emotional when he's in bed because he hears there's a bunch of gun noises everywhere around him. He's in New York and he's actually genuinely crying. That really hurt, man, because he really is a boy who is just stuck in this body or whatever. It was emotional as hell. And it's supposed to be a comedy, so I didn't think that. The rest of the movie shows us some what he goes through, and it is a lot of comedy. But then by the end, we actually do get serious again, as he has a girlfriend now who is adult age, and he has to explain to her that he's too young to be dating her or whatever. And that gets emotional too. He has to choose: does he want to go back to the life he never realized he loved, or does he want to continue being this big dude that he's starting to adapt with? It's a choice. It's a hard choice. It's a pretty mature kind of film, but Tom Hanks established himself as the man who can pull off great comedy, but also great drama. That's what makes him my all time favorite actor. He's hilarious, but also great with his comedic timing. I mean, dramatic timing, I meant. I said, yeah, he's amazing in comedy. He's hilarious, but he's also quite the tearjerker. That he's great at both of them. And I think this movie was the one that introduced us to that. Well, now let's go ahead and talk about a moment where he really is nothing but tear jerking. Andrew Beckett in frickin' Philadelphia. This was one of those movies that I actually couldn't keep a straight. I couldn't keep a normal, strict, mature face with. I was about to cry like a baby when I watched this movie because my God, it is just a sad, crazy story. A man who ends up having AIDS, where he's not able to get the legal working rights that he thinks he deserves because of his condition. So it's kind of a fight lawsuit film. He has to get a lawyer, Denzel Washington, who has to fight for his right to be able to work or whatever, or to I guess have um legal rights or whatever because of his AIDS. I guess just kind of treat him good for his age or something like that. It's a lot to take in, but when we get to the point where we see him slowly become more affected by these AIDS, it really does get to my attention. I really was crying hard, and this was at an age where I normally just not care about this stuff. I would usually just look at these scenes and be like, boring. Where's the action? Where's the satirical comedy? But I was actually paying attention to this film. I was really getting emotional. Like this movie shows a perfect example of Tom Hanks actually being a serious straight man. He's not play around. He's not there to establish himself as a guy who you're just seeing as an actor in a movie. It's a real man that I'm watching right now. I'm watching a real footage. I believe this man. I believe everything he's saying. I believe Tom Hanks really does have AIDS. I know he doesn't, but this movie actually made it come off so convincing that I could buy it. Yeah, he is, like I said, he's great at disguising himself in roles. And this just proves to be great at him because when we see him slowly become worse with his condition to the point where he does eventually dies, man, I couldn't stop crying. I don't even know how much longer I could talk about this without bursting up. It was such a sad, emotional fest of a movie. It's not the easiest movie for a child to follow, but the more I rewatch it, the more I can look at the scenes of him, his character, and just think, man, more people like him would be fun without them getting AIDS. All right, now on to the lightheartedness. I literally talk about a performance where he is like the most saddened person ever, and put him below a freaking cartoon character. Why am I putting a cartoon character at number two or even on this list to begin with? You could argue this shouldn't count because it's not a performance, it's a voice. But it is an awesome voice. I put him on the list and I put him this high because he's got such a great talent with the voice. I mean, the amount of yelling and constant attitude he gives to the character, I think, is what makes Toy Story, all movies, show a good example of when celebrity voice acting is done right. Nowadays, Pixar, DreamWorks, and every other animation studio tries to find as many big celebrities as they can to put in their film, and it doesn't work a lot of times. I mean, take DreamWorks. They have a lot of great films, but when a film isn't great, one of the big problems with it is the voice actors they just throw in. In one movie, they could, I don't know, get Will Smith and Martin Scorsese to voice Fish. In another film, they'll get Justin Timberlake and Anna Kendrick to play trolls. And even with Pixar, I adore most of their movies, but sometimes it can be crazy for them to just be like, all right, so let's see. Chris Evans as Buzz Lightyear or something. Or how about Michael Caine as a car? I'm just thinking of the bad Pixar movies or whatever. Well, let's just go ahead and talk about this because this proves how voice acting can work, even if it is a celebrity. Because Tom Hanks really puts us all into this voice. He yells a lot. He says a lot of funny things. He does a lot of funny voice moments. There's even a lot of scenes where he gets emotional, and even if you don't see it, you can still hear it. You can hear him. He sounds like a jet he cowboy. I mean, he does sound like the kind of person who would voice a cowboy. I mean, he doesn't have the entirely the southern accent, but he does have that kind of voice that you definitely could hear from a real cowboy. And he's just a toy, but yeah, throughout all these movies, he is getting older, and some argue that maybe they're doing too much of these movies with his voice getting too old to really have that amount of energy as he did in the first two films. But the fact that he is still willing to do the role more, he's still committed to it, I think says a lot about him as an actor and how his character does still grow. While of course his voice get you of course will notice his voice getting older as these films go on, but at the same time, he still takes the role seriously, and I can appreciate that. But alright, Forrest Gump. Why I put this at number one, it didn't make me cry as hard as Philadelphia. It didn't make me laugh as hard as Toy Story, but it was able to balance both in the most perfect way possible. I put him at number one because I love Forrest Gump as a character. The acting on Tom Hanks's part is amazing, mainly because he spends the whole movie in a Southern accent. I literally did just talk about how he didn't have a Southern accent for the cowboy, but he does for this role. And this role, this character, he's just impossible to dislike. He's one of those. It's one of those movies where we have a main character that literally has nothing that you can hate about him. He's a boy, he's a man who has a lower intelligence. He's not really the smartest tool in the shed. But at the same time, he's committed to all sorts of things. He's a fast runner and he will become a football um quarterback with his running. Then he will find other ways to live life. He'll become a veteran, he'll become a shrimp hunter. He'll just do whatever he can to make it to the world. And we see him go through all these job transitions in the film, while at the same time still keeping his low energy and, intelligence. He still remains not as bright, but he's genuine. He cares, he's committed, he does as much as he can. He's just a very likable soul. And a lot of that comes from Tom Hanks playing him. He gives us the genuine soul. He gives us the accent the whole movie, which is impressive. But he also gives us this character that really goes hard. I know he didn't invent the character. I know this is a book that the movie's based on, but bringing it to life, when I'm seeing this man, I just wish I could meet him in person. I wish it was a real man like this. It really does make it the most beautiful film ever. One of the most beautiful films ever, at least. So yeah, don't know much more I could say. This is like one of the best characters I've seen in any film ever. And it's thanks to a performance from the greatest actor of all time that I can say that.